Yes, guys, so I'm back. Now, my target is to complete within the next 3 hours the chapters that I've said to be complete. Okay, so now we'll talk about the different types of volcanoes. So, one is the shield volcanoes. So, these shield volcanoes are the largest of all the volcanoes on the earth. The Hawaiian volcanoes are the most famous examples. So these volcanoes are mostly made up of basalt, which is a type of lava that is very fluid when erupted. So for this reason, these volcanoes are not steep. So, but they become explosive if somehow water gets into the wind. Otherwise, they're usually very low explosive kind of thing. And this upcoming lava, it moves in the form of a fountain and it throws out the cone at the top of the vent and it develops into a cinder cone. Now let's learn about the composite volcanoes. Now these volcanoes are characterized by eruptions of cooler and more viscous lavas. These volcanoes are characterized by eruptions of cooler and more viscous lavas than basalt. They are usually very explosive, unlike the shield volcanoes. And along with lava, we also have large quantities of pyroclastic materials and ashes which find their way to the ground. So this material, it accumulates in the vicinity of the vent openings and forms many layers. That's why it makes it appear like composite volcanoes. That's why it is known as composite volcanoes. Now, the third type, which is the caldera. Now, this is the most explosive of all the Earth's volcanoes. They are so explosive that when they erupt, they collapse on themselves only. So these collapse depressions are called as caldera. So basically, this high explosiveness of caldera indicates that the magma chamber is very close to the surface. Now, the fourth type is the flood basalt provinces. So this is the type where the volcanoes they flow with the lava is so fluid that they flow for very long distances. That is why it's called flood basalt provinces. Deccan Traps is one particular very good example. It covers the Maharashtra plateau, and it is believed that these trap formations covered a much larger area than the present. Now, the next type is the mid-ocean ridge volcanoes. So these volcanoes they occur only in the oceanic areas. That is why the name is mid-ocean ridge volcanoes. So this is a system of mid-oceanic ridges which is more than 70,000 kilometers long that stretches through all the ocean basins. Now the central portion of this ridge it experiences frequent volcanoes. Okay. So now the next type. So these are all the different types of volcanoes, which are basalt or the shield volcanoes, composite volcanoes, caldera, flood basalt provinces, mid-ocean ridge volcanoes. Now let's talk about the volcanic landforms. So that means the landforms which are formed as a result of volcanoes. So these are of many types. Firstly, we'll talk about the intrusive forms. So this lava which is released during the volcano on cooling, it develops into igneous rocks. Remember, the lava gets developed into igneous rocks. Now, this cooling may take place either on reaching the surface or while that lava is still in the crust when it's coming out. So, depending on where it cools down, these igneous rocks are classified into two types. One is the volcanic rocks and the other is plutonic rocks. Now, volcanic rocks they cool at the surface, and plutonic rocks they cool in the crust. Now, this lava, which cools in the crust, it assumes different forms. These are called intrusive forms. Why are they called intrusive forms? Because it is cooling inside only. So now we'll see what all those intrusive forms are. So the first one is batholiths. Now, a large body of the magma, it cools in the deeper depth of the crust and it develops in the form of very large domes. These appear, when they appear on the surface after a lot of erosion and denudation of the overlying materials occurs, then After all of that gets eroded away, only then these batholiths will appear. These are granitic bodies. And these batholiths are basically the whole portion of magma chambers, as you obviously must be known. Now, the next type is the laccoliths. Now, so these laccoliths are also same large dome-shaped intrusive bodies, but they are connected by a pipe-like conduit from below. That means to the bottom, where there are batholiths, these laccoliths are connected by a pipe-like conduit. They resemble exactly the composite volcanoes, but just that they are in a deeper depths. The Karnataka plateau is spotted with domal hills of granite rocks. Most of these now exfoliated. That means now after the erosions, we have spotted this Karnataka plateau, which has a lot of domal hills of granite. Now, the next types are lapolith, papolith, and sills. Now, when this lava moves upwards, a portion of the lava tends to move in the horizontal direction where it finds a weak plane. Wherever there is a weak plane, it sometimes tends to move in horizontal direction. It moves into horizontal direction and it may get rusted in different forms. If it develops into a saucer shape while moving horizontally, concave to the sky body, then it's known as lapillus. A wavy mass of intrusive rocks at times, they are found at the base of synclines. Such wavy materials, they have a conduit to source beneath, which later slowly they develop as batholiths, as you all know. So these wave of intrusive rocks which have a conduit to below, these are known as pacholiths. Now, the near horizontal bodies are called sill or sheet. They're almost near horizontal, unlike the saucer shape or the concave shape and this wave-like material. These are plainly, very plainly horizontal. These are known as sill or sheet. But do we call it sill or do we call it sheet? It depends upon the thickness of the material. The thinner ones you call sheet, obviously sheet of paper which is thin, that's why you call it sheet. While a little thicker ones are known as sills. Now next, we talk about dikes. Now the next form of intrusive form is dikes. So when the lava, it makes its way through cracks and fissures developed in the land, it solidifies perpendicular to the ground. So this comes outside through the cracks and fissures which are developed in the ground. And slowly it cools down in the same position and develops like a wall-like structure. It looks like a wall. So these are called as dikes. These are most commonly found in western Maharashtra area. So people think these are the feeders for the eruptions that led to the development of the Deccan Tracts. Okay, so